Cybernetics, or Control and Communication in the Animal and the Machine, 1948. Introduction. This book represents the outcome, after more than a decade, of a program of work undertaken jointly with Dr. Arturo Rosenblueth, then of the Harvard Medical School and now of the Instituto Nacional de Cardiología of Mexico. In those days, Dr. Rosenblueth, who was the colleague and collaborator of the late Dr. Walter B. Cannon, conducted a monthly series of discussion meetings on scientific method. The participants were mostly young scientists at the Harvard Medical School, and we would gather for dinner about a round table in Vanderbilt Hall. The conversation was lively and unrestrained. It was not a place where it was either encouraged or made possible for anyone to stand on his dignity. After the meal, somebody, either one of our group or an invited guest, would read a paper on some scientific topic, generally one in which questions of methodology were the first consideration, or at least a leading consideration. The speaker had to run the gauntlet of an acute criticism, good-natured but unsparing. It was a perfect catharsis for half-baked ideas, insufficient self-criticism, exaggerated self-confidence, and pomposity. Those who could not stand the gaffe did not return, but among the former habitués of these meetings there is more than one of us who feels that they were an important and permanent contribution to our scientific unfolding. Not all the participants were physicians or medical scientists. One of us, a very steady member, and a great help to our discussions, was Dr. Manuel Sandoval Vallarta, a Mexican like Dr. Rosenbluth and a professor of physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who had been among my very first students when I came to the institute after World War I. Dr. Vallarta used to bring some of his MIT colleagues along to these discussion meetings, and it was at one of these that I first met Dr. Rosenbluth. I had been interested in the scientific method for a long time, and had, in fact, been a participant in Josiah Royce's Harvard seminar on the subject in 1911 to 1913. Moreover, it was felt that it was essential to have someone present who could examine mathematical questions critically. I thus became an active member of the group until Dr. Rosenbluth's call to Mexico in 1944 and the general confusion of the war ended the series of meetings. For many years, Dr. Rosenbluth and I had shared the conviction that the most fruitful areas for the growth of the sciences were those which had been neglected as a no-man's land between the various established fields. Since Leibniz, there has perhaps been no man who has had a full command of all the intellectual activity of his day. Since that time, science has been increasingly the task of specialists, in fields which show a tendency to grow progressively narrower. A century ago, there may have been no Leibniz, but there was a Gauss, a Faraday, and a Darwin. Today, there are few scholars who can call themselves mathematicians or physicists or biologists without restriction. A man may be a topologist or an acoustician or a coleopterist. He will be filled with the jargon of his field and will know all its literature and all its ramifications. But more frequently than not, he will regard the next subject as something belonging to his colleague 3 doors down the corridor, and will consider any interest in it, on his own part, as an unwarrantable breach of privacy. These specialized fields are continually growing and invading new territory. The result is like what occurred when the Oregon country was being invaded simultaneously by the United States settlers, the British, the Mexicans, and the Russians, an inextricable tangle of exploration, nomenclature, and laws. There are fields of scientific work, as we shall see in the body of this book, which have been explored from the different sides of pure mathematics, statistics, electrical engineering, and neurophysiology, in which every single notion receives a separate name from each group, and in which important work has been triplicated or quadruplicated, while still other important work is delayed by the unavailability in one field of results that may have already become classical in the next field.